Beware, this story may contain references to Greek mythology.
Hi. Happy Aries full moon. I wrote you a story. Want to hear it? Here it go. I often imagine my inner child and my shadow being friends. I picture them holding hands and playing in fields of daisies. I picture my shadow guiding my inner child through underworlds so she can pick up souvenirs, which they bring back to me, gift wrapped in boxes full of laughter. Our shadows get such a bad rap, but it is so often them who bring us that full gut laughter. Ruby had a shadow, and his name was Pepper. The unique thing about him was that he was made of fire. And Ruby was so proud to have him as her friend because he was unlike any other shadow she had ever seen. And even though he would sometimes burn her, her love for him outweighed the pain. Ruby and Pepper had a nightly ritual. Pepper would warm her until she fell asleep, and once she had fully fallen, he would take her on adventures. They would travel together, but never anywhere with street lamps. He would hold her hand, and she could always trust him to light the way once the darkness had become overwhelming. Then came the night, then came the place that was so cold it had dimmed Pepper's fire. His light had become so diminished that the way home had become unclear. Ruby and Pepper were lost. They had made their way into an underworld buried so deep that even the hottest summer day's sun could not reach the damp soil above them. Pepper had always been so confident about where he was leading them, and he had never even considered the possibility of making a wrong turn. And Ruby trusted him so intently that she hadn't noticed when his confidence had turned to hubris. His big head had made him reckless. Her open heart made her trust blindly. Their impulsiveness had turned their adventure into a dangerous situation. They were stuck in a world that was cold and dark, with winding trails. The impatience to get home had taken hold of both of them. They continued walking because they didn't know what else to do. Passing barren trees which towered over their own fallen, rotting fruits, they came across a young girl, crouched under one of these trees. Her back was to them, so they called out to her, and as she turned, they were both struck by her beauty. Hoping she may know the way out, they approached her. It wasn't until they were close enough to touch her that they realized she was eating a piece of decayed, maggot-ridden fruit. She smiled at them, exposing the worms squirming in her mouth, trying to escape through the corners. Before they could even let out their gasps of disgust, they were running. They were getting tired and hungry, but optimism remained because they still had each other. Stopping to catch their breath, they were approached by a man whose handsomeness had almost gone unnoticed. He was hard to see because of his distracting height. He loomed over both Ruby and Pepper. He was taller than the trees. He spoke to them. "Don't mind her, that's just my niece. Somewhere down the line she made the mistake of marrying me, which seems to have driven her a bit mad." He shrugged. Women, am I right? This was the moment they realized who it was they were talking to, which meant Pepper knew exactly where they were, but he was still unsure of how to get out. "Right," they both said in unison, exchanging glances. "Say, we seem to be a bit lost. Any chance you know how we can get out of here?" Ruby asked. "Well, the only way out is the way you got here. But if you got here by trusting him, and he got you lost, well, that seems like a bit of a predicament. You are welcome to follow me, but if I'm to show you out, he must stay." Ruby took a moment. This made Pepper very uneasy. The longer she seemed to mull it over, Pepper's insecurity grew alongside his anger. "You go with him. Are you crazy? Well, you are the one who got us lost in the first place. Yeah, I know, but what? No. Pepper looked at the man, took Ruby's hand, and said, "We'll find our own way, thanks." Ruby pulled her hand away. The man began to laugh. His laugh echoed through them. He covered his mouth as if to control his glee, and he began looking around, worried, to see if it had attracted anything. It had. Her black cloak had rendered her almost invisible. If it weren't for her glowing crescent crown peeking out of her dark hood, they may not have seen her at all. She was scary, but her presence warmed them like ginger, and Pepper's fire began to pulse, growing. She smiled at Pepper. This made Ruby a bit jealous, even though she had just been considering never holding his hand again. The hooded woman turned to the man, whose height was shrinking in her presence. Once he had come down to her same height, she began whispering in his ear, and he became smaller and smaller until she shifted her gaze to Ruby. This shocked Ruby, but she didn't dare break eye contact. Whether it was out of fear or jealous rage, she held her eyes locked in contact. The woman, still staring, bent down and picked up the little man and slid him into her pocket. Then she moved closer to Ruby with an eerie grace. "You almost made the biggest mistake of your life, little girl." Ruby scowled at her. Pepper smirked. "Don't you smirk, Shadow. You're not without fault here. You were both doing so well until you let this little idiot," she tapped her pocket, "put a crack in your bond. He gave you the answer. He always does. But he never stops there. You made it here with trust and confidence. Your relationship is how you came here. Let it be your way out." The moment Ruby and Pepper's eyes met, the woman was gone. Living our lives to the fullest requires balance. Good, bad, light, dark, yin, yang, you know. Every duality is necessary, but when they become imbalanced, that's when we get lost. Sometimes it only takes a few deep breaths to find our way, and sometimes we must tip the scale fully in one direction in order to understand the other. However, it is easy to tip that scale and then forget about the other side. This leaves our healing unfinished and wanting. To finish, you must look at the other side of the scale, even if what's on it burns you. You need to breathe, let it cool, and try again. But don't you dare, ever, stop trying. Thank you.